Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Y'all Be Good. I'm your host, Ralph, along with my co-host, Heather. We are a product of Little Lion Cuts. In this episode of Y'all Be Good, we actually sit down with trauma and abuse recovery coach, Kensie Elizabeth. She shares her own path to healing and how she now helps others rebuild self-trust so that they can live confidently, securely, and freely. So, without further ado, sit back, buckle up, and y'all be good.
3, 2, 1, let's go.
Hi, friend.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good.
How's your Sunday?
It's been fine.
Yeah.
Boys are with their dad, so we chilled.
When do you get the kids back?
Tomorrow morning,
Oh, nice.
7:30.
AM. Ugh.
Yeah.
Do they take time to regulate to get back into your household?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every time it's like a few days.
How often are they there? Every weekend or every other?
They go there on Wednesdays and then every other weekend.
Okay. So at least you've got some time. in
Yeah,
between.
they're between, like, when we have them on a weekend, between the Wednesday and the Wednesday, there's like a whole week.
Yeah.
So we usually get, a couple days re-regulation and then pretty good for the rest of the time. But between
Then it starts all over again.
and it starts all over again because it's like they go there Wednesday night, Thursday morning. We don't even get a chance to like re-regulate before the weekend with dad, and then
Oh,
then
man.
there's like a day in between, and then it's Wednesday night again. So it's usually a little crazy.
Yeah. That's always hard for kids
Yeah,
going between homes and trying to adjust to the way that things are in each home.
right. Because we both do things different.
Yeah. Ralph's nervous.
Ralph's nervous.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Because he's afraid he's going to make an inappropriate joke.
I'm afraid that I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say.
Well, the beauty about podcasts is you can edit out whatever you
Actually,
want.
everything is live right now.
No.
Yeah,
we're-
right.
We're live. No. I was going to ask, though, I remember when you came in early on, we kind of bonded over being church kids
Yeah,
in that kind of realm. I was going to ask, what does your Sunday look like right now?
not church.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What does a Sunday look like? Just kind of chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a kid weekend, we try to do stuff with them on the weekends, like go to the park or chill at home,
Yeah.
play games or whatever. If it's not a kid weekend, it kind of depends on like what Cody and I want to do. Sometimes we just chill at home
That's nice.
and like get the house reset
Sure.
before the week starts over. Or sometimes like we'll go get lunch,
Yeah.
brunch, whatever.
I've seen you guys at a lot of concerts lately.
We do like to do that a lot, but that's not usually on a Sunday.
No. God,
It's the
no.
Lord's Day. Come on.
It's on Fridays and Saturdays usually. But to go back to your question, yes, I was raised in the church.
Yeah.
I feel like when did I first bring the boys in?
We
here?
go way back. We went to middle school together. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
Like, wait,
I think
what?
how old are you?
35.
Okay, I'm 38. So
Oh,
we're a little
A
older.
little bit apart.
Did you grow up here?
In Gurnee.
Okay.
So I was in Gurnee schools.
Gotcha.
And I started that in middle school, but before that was Christian school. It was
Oh, really?
Westlake.
Oh yeah, yeah. Westlake.
Mhm.
Sure. So you grew up in church.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My dad just retired last year from being a worship pastor for like 40 years.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were very much in church.
What does that look like now?
Yeah, I was I was so in church that you may even remember hearing about Free to Be Ministries.
It sounds really familiar.
We weren't a part of Great Lakes Church, but we used their church facility and did events here in Kenosha. It was
Okay.
a women's ministry. So I started that with a group of women in 2017.
Okay.
We did a fall conference. I think we did our conference twice. We did a couple Bible studies like where we met weekly for like a few times in the summer. I think we did that twice. It was like a big deal. And then COVID hit in 2020. So we had to do a live event instead of a in-person event for that. And then that summer we actually did one of those drive-in worship nights. That we did in Zion.
I think
at
I
my
do
parents'
remember
church.
that. Okay.
Yeah. And then my divorce started.
Okay.
And when that started, I knew that I was not going to have the capacity to like lead anything. And it was like everything kind of just like fell apart.
Fell apart.
I think just with COVID,
Sure.
me stepping down, it was like nobody really wanted to be the executive director and like do what I was doing. So that just kind of faded out. But it was probably around that same time that I didn't just like do a 180 and let go of like everything with church, but I just experienced so much negative feedback and lack of support and judgment through my divorce.
Sure.
And was because of the nature of my divorce and my relationship, was meeting a lot of other women who had gone through similar things, and they had had the same experiences with church, even though like me, they grew up in church, they were involved in church, they served in church, like, and it's like over and over and over again, the minute you bring up the word divorce, it's like you're the one making the bad choice,
Sure.
even if it's what's best for literally everyone in the situation. And I think that just put a really bad taste in my mouth. It was kind of the start of the end of like me wanting to really do anything with that anymore. And I'm still very much a spiritual person and very much have my faith, but it just looks very different. Like I don't, like if I'm totally serious, I don't know that I could ever step into a church again because of it. It just doesn't feel safe anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I get that. That's super on. Sorry, I know
No,
I
you're
was.
fine. You're fine.
I was really wanting Heather to kind of, because you guys overlap on I think a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I think you and I overlap on a lot of things too. When it comes to that, that's super on par for what, unfortunately, what the church looks like now.
Yeah.
I feel you on a lot of that for sure. And I think I'm also in my own kind of reformation of what my spirituality and my relationship
Right.
with God looks like. I know it's in the zeitgeist right now, a term called deconstruction, right?
Yeah, totally.
Where you're just kind of deconstructing everything that you've learned. And I don't know, you look at my TikTok and it's a bunch of deconstruction TikTok.
Yeah.
And
I like the word reconstruction too, because I think it's like
yeah,
there's such like a negative connotation when it comes to deconstruction, like especially in the church, right? You hear all of these like sort of spiritual bypassing comments of like, well, just because one person did it to you doesn't mean God did it to you. And it's like, yeah, but God isn't just in that building either.
exactly.
And there's a lot of good that I've experienced in church, and there's also a lot of really bad. And I feel like the way forward is to get rid of what's bad and like figure out what's good and what really honors like what we claim to believe. And I feel like that's kind of the journey that deconstruction really is.
Sure. Yeah.
But people don't always hear that word and think that. They think like, oh, you're just getting rid of it all. And it's like, no, I'm like putting it through the sifter and figuring out like what's actually true and what actually aligns with like the God that I was taught about.
Sure.
So definitely can relate to that for sure.
Well, and that's really like I did not grow up in the church. I did go to like church with friends every once in a while, or like I think I went to one or two youth groups, like a one-off kind of thing. But my own experience with people who are very faith-based and they hear that I didn't grow up in the church, and even just discovering my own identity in that realm, like I've had to explain to people like just because the way that I practice doesn't look the way that you do doesn't mean I'm wrong. And I feel like a lot of people, especially if you're in this tight-knit group and you start doing something a little differently, it really throws them off. And instead of internalizing, saying, why does this make me feel this way? They put it all on you.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a good segue into trauma talk because what happens is people want what feels safe. And for some people, a lot of people that end up in church groups, they want black and white rules. They want clear instructions. They want to know they're good. They want to know they're safe. And that's what feels that way. And the minute that you get into like this mysterious large land of gray, where to me, like that's where faith expands for me. But for other people's that feels very, very scary, which I understand. So I think sometimes when you start to like prick at the little safety bubble of like, yeah, but also, like this doesn't quite fit in your box of safety. So they want to push back on it.
It's
you
a
know?
yes and.
Well, and two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, that's like a really hard concept when you're in this like sort of
Bubble.
box of safety.
Yes.
And I think that applies not to just church. Like people do it all the time when they go a certain way on,
Political views.
Yeah, political views, but even like day-to-day things, like when we have like our routines, that's because that's what just we've gone into a rut of like what feels safe, what feels good, what feels normal. I think most people are making decisions every day, every moment, every minute based on what feels safe. They just don't always recognize it as that. But that's the whole idea behind trauma, is like slowing down and recognizing those patterns to be like, oh, maybe I don't believe this, or maybe this actually isn't the best thing for me anymore. And that's not just about like religion, but anything, right?
Sure.
Like food or whatever it is, a relationship, right? Like slowing down and thinking like, am I doing this just because it feels comfortable and that's what feels safe to me? Or am I doing this because this actually aligns to what I want to do or what my goals are? But that really is what it all comes down to when it comes to trauma, is feeling safety.
I mean, I didn't even realize that your divorce was not that long ago.
Yeah, it was 5 years.
5 years. And then within those 5 years, because now you have a group that's going to meet up, you have your book, and you're doing coaching with other people that have experienced trauma, especially in relationships, and unpacking like codependency and all that comes with it. Did you, when you first left your marriage, did you see yourself going down this road?
No, I don't think so. I thought for sure when I started the ministry that I had found my thing, right? Now I don't really believe there is one thing. I think we have things of seasons, but that's a conversation for a different day. But I thought like this was it. Like I had started Bible school, college. Like I wanted to go to seminary, which was a whole complex thing too, because, women preachers are hit and miss for some people in the church. But I loved preaching. I loved teaching. I loved spreading the gospel of freedom and truth. That's what I loved so much about what I was doing then. And so when that sort of like hit what I thought was a pause, I thought for sure like things would pick up again one day. And then it was like, as the years went on, it was like, well, maybe it'll be just like a smaller thing, because I was really turned off by like big organizations. And I was like, I don't even want to do that anymore. So like maybe it'll be a smaller thing. And then as more years went on, it was like, maybe I'm just going to do this one-on-one with people and totally take the religion part out of it and just create safe spaces for people. And it's funny because there is still overlap though, because this whole idea of like free to be, which was the ministry, came from this idea of like being free from shame, being free from your past, being free from guilt. It's just that message was like through, faith or through spirituality. Yeah. And now like, I feel like I still am very much like about that message. It's just that I'm not bringing in that piece to it unless the person is, a faith-based person and wants to.
Yeah.
But I think going through what I did just made me, one, realize how much I didn't even know about, these hidden abuses and these traumas that you can't see the scars of, right? And it's so normalized in people's day-to-day lives, not just in relationships, but in family dynamics. It's normalized in work culture, like this coercive kind of manipulative power over is very common, and we kind of normalize it as this or that. And so understanding like, wow, like I had no idea that this is what it was, and wanting to like tell other people who were in those situations, trying to figure it out, just feeling very confused, like sort of give them that light on the path, I guess, was part of it. But then that sort of fell into like learning about trauma and learning about how these things affect us, and not just the relationship itself, but like, how did I even get in this relationship in the first place and not see these signs? Like, what happened in my past that like led that? And that sort of opened the can of worms of like trauma and how things affect our nervous system and our body. And so like all of this was obviously very pivotal for me in my life as a person and as a mom. How I parented completely changed because of it. But it was like, then the next step was like, now I want to learn all of it, and I want to like help other people. And so I kind of fell into this idea of, am I going to be a counselor? Like, what do I want to do? And ended up choosing coaching.
Well, and it's like one of those things, like, because I left a marriage that was not, for lack of a better, serving me well, and all that. Like, you get obsessed kind of with like researching it because you want that answer. Like,
Yeah.
like you said, like, how did I get into this? Because when you do enter a relationship, you're so swept up by certain things that you either say, I'm going to push that. That's not a big deal. That really isn't a big deal. But it's like when everything starts to pile up together and it becomes a bigger deal. And then just like society pressures, feeling embarrassed that you didn't make it work.
Sure.
Or you picked the dud or whatever.
Whatever,
like,
yeah.
I've heard all of it. It's just, and it is like, for me, a lot of it was society. Like, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, you're supposed to do these things. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And like, I know I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm good by myself. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to drive myself crazy trying to get all these things because maybe that's not really what I wanted in the first place.
Right. Well, and with my upbringing too, the church aspect, I mean, the marriage is very big in the church, right? Like, get married, get married, get married. So that definitely added to it too. It was like, I never even thought twice about not being married or not having kids. Like, it was like, that's the next step.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get there?
Sure.
Right.
Who's the right
Who's
person?
the person?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Can we backtrack a minute? I know
Yeah.
we kind of skimmed over a little bit, but we're talking about the trauma now. But what was it like? So let's kind of jump back into, you got married at how old?
We got married when I had just turned 21.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were high school boyfriend and girlfriend, and we got married pretty young. I mean,
he was in the church as well.
Oh no, actually
Okay.
he wasn't.
Okay.
No, he actually was, at the time when we were dating, he was an atheist. And towards the end of our relationship, or I should say before we got engaged, that kind of became the pivotal thing, was like, well, I can't marry you. Like, and it's like, what was I doing? Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was stupid. I was in high school, right?
Sure.
Like, you just, oh, you're cute. Like, that's it, right? But I remember having a conversation with him at one point and being like, well, we either are getting married or we're not, and I can't marry you if you're not like even willing to try church. And so he did. So he kind of decided that to get married, he would do what he thought he needed to do,
Sure.
to make it not end.
Sure.
So
like converting to Judaism to
yeah,
yeah.
kind of. So he started going to church with me, and we went I think throughout our whole marriage, actually.
Okay.
I just don't know that it was ever like, I mean, I can't say for him what it was, but I don't know if it ever became really like a personal change or not, or if it was just the thing he did just because
He wanted to make you happy.
yeah, and wanted, that I was like my ultimatum, really. So yeah, so we got married young and got engaged once that it was like, oh, box check.
Sure.
Now we can get engaged.
Yeah.
But I mean, our relationship, even before we got married, was pretty hot and cold, even when we were dating. And I think I just always thought like we were so young and,
Sure.
you know,
You'd grow out of it.
yeah, or what, like I was young. I was 17 when we started dating. So like, don't all people fight
Yeah.
or whatever? And I just never really thought more about that. I mean, even at 21, you're so young. You're not thinking more than a month ahead of yourself.
Yeah. Well, and
So-
you're not like thinking about what conversations you should have with a person that you want to
Yeah.
spend, like, which, you know, it's like, oh, I don't want to ruin the moment or cause an issue, but because you're also young and you want something to keep going on, you're happy with everything, or you think you're happy with everything, or you are happy with everything. And it is scary to confront people with questions that would make them not want to be with you anymore.
Exactly. So my own patterns or whatever that I've now figured out and done things in therapy for and whatever was very like anxious relating to people. So I was very afraid of abandonment and rejection. I didn't realize this at the time, but it was like anything to like any idea of like they might leave me or they might whatever. It was like I wanted to avoid that feeling or that possibility. So there was a lot of that at play too. And also, I mean, at 21, do you really know yourself? No, not really. I mean, sort of better than I did, but not as good as I do now, you know? So there's a lot of things that like, it's like I didn't really process like this will matter later or this might be a problem later. And some of it I just, like I said, I just thought was normal.
Sure.
Yeah.
We were young. We were having, you know, young 20 years. We're just going out and no responsibilities, no kids, doing whatever. And it's like, then we'd have a big fight and it's like, oh, we'll figure it out later. Like it's, everyone fights, right? So I think it's all of those pieces kind of mixed together.
Yeah. Well, especially when you don't have kids too, you're like, oh, we fought and we'll make up at some point. Like it's not that big of a deal, but then it's like you have kids and you're trying to set an example for them. And one of those things is like how you fight with someone and how you make up with them, how you resolve. And like fighting doesn't necessarily mean like beating each other up or calling each other names. It's conflict. So it's just crazy what you don't know that you'll need to recognize later. But we've been around it our whole lives, like seeing the way that people handle themselves in different situations and what we take from that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We weren't good at conflict or resolving it. Like, and our relationship, I mean, we certainly had arguments that blew up. I mean, we had them, but it wasn't like physical or anything like that. Like we just, if I were to go back, like it just, if you met that person and me, like we just weren't compatible at all on any level. We didn't have the same ideas of most things that like actually matter. And so when it came down to like big decisions that we were going to make, there was no way we were going to find common ground. So that was a big part of it. And you know, being in a relationship where one person genuinely wants to try to find an equal, mutual, unified place because that's what a relationship is about. But then having the other person that's not the goal. Like that's not their goal ever. You're going to have one person sort of fighting to find the middle ground and the other person is like, no, I'm going to stay in this space because this is what I want or this is what I think. And there's no budging, that's impossible. There's nothing you can do or say to make that work.
Yeah.
So.
How long were you married?
Almost 10 years.
Okay. And you kind of noticed that, you're saying, pretty early on.
Yeah. I mean, even when we dated in high school, we had fights, like blow up fights, and then we'd make up. And like I said, it's like, my dad was actually, him and I were just talking the other day because he was like, I never understood why you didn't leave. And I'm like, well, there's so much packed into that question. first of all, if you ever ask someone that, the better question is, why didn't he change his jerk behavior in the first place, right? Like, that's the start of it, if there's that constant problem. But you don't start out with the end. You start out in the beginning when it's like there's still a lot of the good, right? And even throughout, it's not every day is bad. You have good days, you have good moments. So you kind of get confused of like, what's real? What's what's the real them or the real relationship? And what's just, the bad day or the off day. So that part is confusing. But then it's like, well, now we're engaged. And now we're married. Now we have kids. And it's like you keep getting further down the line. It's even harder to want to go.
Yeah.
But for me, what finally sort of finalized my decision to be done was a couple of things. One, we tried doing couples counseling, and it didn't go anywhere. So we were in counseling for almost 3 years, and like nothing changed.
Yeah. Was it faith-based counseling?
It was.
Okay.
So I have words about that. But there's many things that I could say about that. But I remember whatever the last day was that I decided I was done with counseling. We were talking about the same thing that we had talked about since we went. Like, that was the issue that made us go. And it was the same conversation. There was no like awareness or ownership of the problem that existed. And it was like, we'll do this for 40 years. And I can't do that. That was part of it. And the other part of it was because my faith was so integral in my life still at the time. Obviously I was struggling with the idea of divorce, and like, divorce is a sin and we're supposed to be committed and stuff. But what finalized that part for me was realizing that I was in my marriage strictly for legalistic reasons. It was like, because we were married, I was going to stay. And I thought, if God doesn't even want us in a relationship for that reason, then he doesn't want us in a marriage for that reason. And so that was like the final thing that sort of set me free to make the decision to be done.
Sure.
But it was faith-based counseling. It was a licensed counselor.
No, I get that.
But it was a biblical
Sure.
couples counselor. And I would say most couples counselors, unless they go and do their own training outside of their master's program or have a specific emphasis on abuse, domestic violence, like these high conflict relationships, they don't know how to see the problems that can exist, because these things do not show up on your skin. These are issues that they fly right under the radar. It's so subtle. It's so nuanced. It's until you see the pattern in big picture.
Yeah.
So you have like 20 examples to show the pattern. If you just look at one or two examples, there's a million justifications you could come up with of why that might have happened or might have been said. So you really have to have that experience and that training to be able to see the red flags in a relationship like that. And a lot of counselors don't, unless they go, like I said, and do the training themselves, or they've had the experience themselves.
Yeah.
Then you add the faith aspect into it, where it's like, now even more so, do they want the relationship to work and the marriage to last?
Yeah.
It's like a blinder, because the goal becomes to make the marriage work
Sure.
versus individual safety and healing and wholeness and et cetera.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that added a factor too.
Well, and I'm sure too, there's, I don't know how they get their licenses and how much continuing education they have to do. But I feel like there are some people that are old school in their thoughts, and unless it's physical, then there's nothing wrong with the marriage. You just aren't being a good wife, or you're not being a man. And like that's frustrating to me, because there are times where, especially when you're in that situation where you're like, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And it isn't you. It might be the way that you're responding to the situation. But even then, you're doing the right thing. You're responding correctly. It's just that other person is the one who's, whether they're male or female on either side.
Right. Yeah. And you see, I think what I hear the most often when couples go to counseling and they're trying to fix the relationship, but the real issue is behind the scenes is covert abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, but that's not come to like their language yet, right? The thing that you always hear them say or the counselor say is communication issues, conflict resolution issues, something along those lines. So it becomes this idea of like you have to communicate better or, recognize each other's triggers better and communicate well within that space. And it's like the problem though is you have one person who's like, okay, I'll do anything to try to make this work. And you have the other person that may say that but has no intention of it. And so one person keeps changing, keeps doing, keeps learning, keeps trying everything. And it still doesn't work. And you still go to counseling and they're like, well, communication issues and blah, blah. And you're like, I'm literally trying everything.
Yeah.
So you just have that blinder of like, again, with couples counseling, couples therapy, couples coaching, whatever. It's like when the goal becomes, well, it's a relationship issue. If it's an abuse issue, that's separate. That's a separate thing. That's not a relationship issue. That's an abuse issue.
Well, and that's what I don't think, like when I went to my therapist and I was having issues with my marriage, she told me, if you want to stay with him, I'm with you. If you want to leave him, I'm with you. Like she never told me what to do.
Which is good.
Yes. Yep. And which I feel like in counseling too, they're like waiting for one person to make that realization. Like I had the same thought you did. You were like, this is the next 40 years. And I was like, this is the rest of my life. And it does, like, people telling you, like, oh, you should leave, or this guy's whatever. Like, the more that they say stuff, the more it made me, like, basically crawl back inside.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to talk to some people about it or anybody about it. I didn't want people to pity me or whatever. So I wouldn't say anything or I wouldn't bring it up. And I would try harder to help him so that I could help myself.
Right.
Because if you're miserable and the other person's like, well, I really want to try. And that's the worst, I feel like the worst manipulation too is they want to be in that relationship still, but they want it, like you said, they want to stay in that one place. They want to do that one way. And it's like, that's not how relationships work.
Right. Right. Exactly. You got to be able to come to a space of together, working together, not against each other. But if only one person is doing that, it's not a relationship issue.
That should be your first like aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't think counselors, coaches, whoever, I don't think they should ever be telling anyone what to do. I think especially in those cases, it's very important to let the person who's been harmed experience autonomy and freedom and voice and choice, because a lot of times that's taken away from them in a lot of ways in that relationship. And so if you push them even to do what you feel like is a good thing, one, it probably isn't going to stick until they're really ready. And two, you can accidentally take place of the abuser in their life by telling them what to do.
Yeah. Now
even if it's good, right? Yeah. They just keep coming to you then like, well, what should I do next? And it's like, no, the goal is to get you to plug back into yourself. And remember that like you have wisdom here, that you can guide yourself, that you can make a decision. Even if you make a mistake, it's okay. Like it's those skills. At the same time though, by not telling them what to do, we can still tell them the truth about what's happening.
Yes.
So that's where I see this like failure happen a lot, is like no one's sitting there being like, this is abuse.
Yeah.
Like we just have to call it what it is. The person maybe wants to change, maybe not, but like we can't tiptoe around it by saying it's a communication issue or it's a this issue. I mean, it's not addiction, it's not mental health, it's not trauma, it's not triggers, it's not communication, it's not misunderstanding. Abuse is in its own category, and that has to be tackled in a completely different way. People can still decide what they want to do with that information, but I just wish people were, like, professionals were just more honest about that.
Yeah.
Because no one said that to me.
No. Well, but then also, if you're sitting there with your abuser and the other person says, that sounds abusive, that might be taken out on you later,
Yeah.
whether it's verbally or whatever. And then, or that, like, near the end of my marriage, I had already asked for couples counseling. We never did it. I started seeing a therapist separately. And then when I was telling him, I was like, this is it, we're done. That's when he wanted to do couples counseling. So I handed him a piece of paper that had all of the names of people that my therapist had said, these guys do couples counseling.
Yeah.
And so I said, you pick the person, because if we go and I pick the person,
It's going to be your fault.
it's going to be my fault. And then, or it's going to be their
Whatever,
fault.
right.
Yeah. So it's just like, you sit there and you're kind of like stuck in this little icky spot because, you know,
Right.
part of you does, like you said, there's good times and then there's bad times. And sometimes the good times are really good and sometimes they're just normal good. And then sometimes they're really bad and sometimes it's like just a little bad. Like, oops, we dropped a plate, whatever. But I don't know. It's such a hard topic because we've had this training for stylists in Illinois. In order to keep your license, you have to take domestic abuse classes. And, you know, they give you ideas of what you can do to help, but they really tell you, like, don't harp on the person about you need to get out, you need to get out. And then don't go in to try to save that person.
Right.
Because if you take them to your house to keep them safe, you might be a victim.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's on a spectrum too, right? Like, some are really physically violent and some aren't at all. And that's kind of where my wheelhouse comes in, is like, think of like the most covert, the most hidden, the least obvious types is where I focus my, like, education and advocacy, is for the people that are experiencing that. Because, like I said earlier, it happens in all kinds of relationships. It happens in all kinds of environments, and it's very normalized. Like, people might think like, oh, well, they're just that way. And it's like, yeah, but that's actually just as dangerous as the guy that's being very obviously physically violent because of the trauma it leaves behind. So,
because that trauma will affect you in other ways, decision making, like, what's that show called? Kevin Can Go Blank Himself.
yeah,
That is, like,
it's a good show.
such a good. Well, I couldn't finish it, but I watched most of it. But, like, watching it, where it looks like, oh, that's just the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
He's such a goofball. He's such a this, and she's clearly suffering from this. And you see it in all of our sitcoms, and you see it even within your own family, like, the way that someone deals with issues in the household might not be super healthy. And then we internalize that, and that pushes onto our next relationship, or like the fear of abandonment, the fear of unconditional love, the fear of all these things that would make you stick around or say, this is normal. Because there's a bunch of times where I'd be like, well, that's how my parents do it. So that's, that's normal for my family.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't grow up in a home with abusive, like, my parents didn't have that dynamic, but we also didn't do conflict good. Like, we didn't handle conflict good. We didn't learn how to talk through conflict. And so, there's like a blinder there that it was like, again, well, we fight and we move on. And so that kind of got normalized for me, which I think played a piece and a factor into like my relationship, and then like going through that cycle, for sure. So the things before affect the things today.
After. Yeah.
They just do.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy how we all compensate for things in our families and not compensate like for that person, but in your own life, you're like, okay, well, this isn't happening, so I'm going to make this happen. So a lot of us are people pleasers or
Yeah.
whatever, other little terms. And it's because of what was lacking in the household.
Yeah.
So then, and sometimes it's no one's fault.
Right.
It's just generational, whatever. Or like Ralph and we always talk about like expectations of your parents, the reality versus what you think.
Sure.
Because I know for a long time I thought my parents wanted me to do things a certain way and be a certain way, and then in reality that wasn't true at all. So then I make life harder on myself because I'm trying to live up to XYZ standards.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people all the time, because usually the domino effect is like someone has a relationship and they're like, is this normal? We keep hitting the same spots. And then it's like the awareness of like, nope, the problem isn't that or that, it's abuse. And then it's like, well, how did I get here? And we start exploring like childhood and, different things that you grew up with or whatever. And like, how did you miss the red flags, or you didn't know about the red flags or whatever. And I will tell people all the time, because they can get stuck in that place of like, but my parents were good people. And I'm like, your parents can be great people and you can still have childhood trauma. Because you could have, just for an example, a single parent who has to work all the time and they love their kids, right? But the kids maybe don't really see them a lot, right? That isn't a bad parent. They're doing what they need to do to survive. And also, it does affect the kids. It just does. And I think kind of coming to terms with the fact that we live in a world that isn't the way it should be most of the time, that is why trauma exists. It is like, yes, some people consciously, purposefully inflict harm on others. Some people, it's the opposite, and it's just because we live in this broken system, this whatever, that it happens. So you don't have to like look back and see how things have affected you. It doesn't mean you have to demonize or hate your parents.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be that way. And also sometimes it's just about like, oh, when they did this or that, like it did affect me. And also I can still love them, and it can be both. But again, that goes back to what we were saying before about it can be hard to hold two things, this, but also.
Yes. Well, it's kind of like divorce. You stay in the marriage and your kids suffer because they have an emotionally unstable household.
Yeah.
You get divorced and then they are affected because now they're trying to please two parents, especially if it's a volatile divorce. Like the parents love their kids very much, but they're so mad at each other. Or even if they're on good terms, you still have like little things. And again, it's not anyone's fault. It's just, the way that our brains process, especially during different times of our life, like this is normal, this is not normal. Or, I don't want to be a trouble. I don't want to be a problem. Or even families who have like one child who has a high support need. And then you have a child with low support need.
Yep.
And one feels a little resentful over the other because they don't know what's really going on. All they know is they're doing a lot of things with mom and dad.
Yep. Exactly. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like, sometimes it's just the circumstances. And like you said before, sometimes there's generational things, like things that our grandparents or our parents thought were normal with parenting. Now is like, there's certain things that are like, if someone were to do that, like you'd get like the side eye in the grocery store, right? Because we've shifted and evolved in even our culture in a lot of ways. Not everybody, but that information, that education, that understanding is expanding and growing. So that changes for a lot of people the way we interact with our kids. So even some of that, it's like, you hear a lot of like emotional neglect, emotional abandonment. These traumas can come through, like I said, some of these situations, or like, I think of like probably more like my grandparents or maybe even great grandparents era of like kids should be never seen, never heard or whatever, right? That
Seen and
idea,
not heard.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So there were these ideas of like, you go away and like that is lost connection. That's big trauma for kids. Where now, like, you almost get the opposite. Parents are feeling guilty for even taking a night out because I think we've become so aware of like what that can do. But so some of it's just ignorance. Like, it's not intentional. Like, I wanted to hurt my children. It's just what happened. It's put the different puzzle pieces together and it affects you in a certain way.
Oh yeah, like overcompensating for something that you felt like you lacked in childhood.
Yeah.
That can affect your kid in a positive and a negative.
I think that's why, like I was saying before, like first I was like diving into all the abuse education. Then it was the trauma stuff because it was like the natural progression of me wanting to understand like my own history, which then of course affected like how I understood my kids and how I was parenting. But I think that's why like I feel like understanding things about trauma, the brain, the nervous system, and why doing trauma recovery coaching and abuse recovery coaching is like such a passion topic for me, because if we don't take the time, even a second, to just reflect on why we do the things we do, why we are the way we are, why we think the way we think, we stay in that safe box, like I was talking about, where it's like, this is just what feels normal and safe, and anything outside of it doesn't. And so I'm just going to stay in this box. But it's like, what if some of the stuff that you're doing, just because it feels like normal to you, comfortable to you, are actually like harming you or others? Like, don't you want to take a second to reflect and see like, why do I have these patterns? Why do I feel this way often when this happens? And that's really what trauma recovery is all about, is slowing down, recognizing patterns, recognizing typical behaviors or responses that you have, and not labeling them as good or bad, but getting curious about them. That's literally like the model that I follow with my clients, is first we notice, and then we just notice. We're not going to go, well, this is a shameful thing. This is a bad thing. It needs to change. We're just going to notice. And then we get really curious in the most neutral, accepting, loving way of like, why are we like that? Not because it's bad, but because we want to understand ourselves. And a lot of times as we like pull that thread, what you find behind it is some sort of emotion that we have a hard time feeling, or some sort of unmet need, like maybe a need for connection or a need for something. Sometimes it can be really simple. It's like a boundary that you needed to say that you didn't even know you needed, but you kept resisting because you thought you were going to be too mean to set the boundary, but now you're all bitter. And so it comes out, like it's just, there's stuff under the surface, but it's like, once you can find what that is, a lot of times it resolves simply by giving space to it, to be felt, to be seen, to be heard, or you're able to advocate for it if it's some sort of need that you have. And the behaviors and the things shift on their own because you're coming from a place of more ease and more peace and less tension. It's really cool to watch when people like have these shifts and these sort of healing journeys happen, and like these things happen in their lives where suddenly they aren't feeling so wound up about whatever because they understood it and just gave it space. But people get very like uncomfortable because I think one, they're afraid they're gonna be labeled or diagnosed as bad, or two, they're afraid what they're gonna find and think, maybe it's gonna be something they don't want. Or three, they just feel really afraid of their emotions, which is fair because emotions can be hard. But like what I'm trying to say is it's just, I feel like that is what changes generations. That is what literally changes cultures. That is what changes families. When you take the time to sit and reflect about why you are the way you are and figure out like, what do I actually like? What fits? Like if I take the time and look at my puzzle pieces, is there anything that's in here that isn't really me? And can I get rid of that to be even more myself? I mean, that changes a lot.
Oh, definitely. Like, is that me thinking it, or is that society's way what I should be thinking? And then like, I know that I'm very self-reflective, but I also I do it for everybody else. So like I
Yeah.
give them an excuse for the behavior instead of just seeing it as it is, like that's not what you want to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to really look at because you can't control anybody else. You can only
No.
control yourself and how you react. And it's really hard. And it's like like reading when you, especially if you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out why you're not happy in this situation. Like I went on YouTube, I looked up
Mm-hmm.
videos of like personality things
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out how that person ticked
Mm-hmm.
instead of like, is
How
this
you ticked?
how do I tick?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do I want out of it?
Exactly.
Because I can say like, oh, I know that I am stubborn, but I'm willing to try new things. But I also, sometimes my opinion means more than others, but then I feel guilty about it. So it's like all these conflicting things. And it's like, you don't know how to, like, it's okay to have an opinion, but it's also okay to change your opinion. And
Yeah.
that was really hard
Yeah.
for me, at least, especially when I was younger to now. Like you say, you look at your younger self
Mm-hmm.
with this guy, you're like, oh, baby, you're just a tiny baby. You don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
And then when I was younger, I thought I did know everything or
Right.
I was told everything and I had people that could tell me the things.
Yeah.
And then learning to be humbled, but not trampled on.
Yeah.
And that's another like fine line. But when you go to like therapy and stuff and you're like, I want to go here to try to fix that problem. It's like, no, you're trying to fix yourself.
Right.
And especially if
It's
with-
not about them.
Mm-mm.
Right. Yeah. I actually was going to say this earlier. That's why when it comes to relationships like this, I always tell people, please do separate therapy. Like you don't have to decide to leave. If you want to stay in the relationship, that's fine, but do your own thing and let them choose if they're going to do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a big shift to go from wanting to help everyone else or figure everyone else out so that you can help them
Mm-hmm.
versus focusing on getting to know you and how you want to respond or engage or interact or not.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big shift for sure.
Is your coaching only for women who have maybe feel too far in one direction, or is it more, I guess, like, can it be used more preventative care wise? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I work. So a lot of times the people that come to me, it usually starts off with they're in a relationship or they just ended a relationship, and they're in that space of like, I can't really figure out what's going on. I don't know if this is normal. Is it me? Is it them? Is it something else? And so kind of getting that clarity piece. But there's definitely people that I have worked with that have either been, they used to be in a relationship and now they're just kind of struggling in some ways. Like they've already left. They know that it was this or that. They know that they were being manipulated or whatever it is. So they have that awareness, but now they're kind of stuck in the sand is settling kind of thing. And they're like, I'm in this fog and I don't know what to do. And so they're just trying to heal. So it just kind of depends on where people are at in their journey. I've also worked with people that they came to me more so for the trauma aspect than a relationship aspect. Like their relationship, they're married, they've been good, but they're struggling with these patterns and they don't know why and they're trying to figure it out. So I kind of cover covert abuse, but also complex trauma. It just kind of depends on where people are, but it seems like the primary group of people that come to me are usually in or just left those relationships or have a loved one in a relationship. I've worked with parents before that have, a daughter or a son that's in a relationship and it's not going well and they're like, what do we do? Yeah. So it kind of just depends.
You have 3 boys.
I do.
How has having boys shifted your mindset, or at least has it given you some sort of insight into the male patterns?
Maybe as they get older, I might. I'm not naive to the fact that like we live in a very patriarchal society, and it's been that way for a very long time. And I think that sets up boys or masculine folk, if we want to say, to be raised power and control, right? Like that is a big part of male culture. Some people dive right into it and some people don't. So I would say having boys, what has affected me the most is to try to raise them up in a way that is countercultural in that way. Like anything, I don't want to blur any line in a weird way, but more so just they're an individual and like wanting them to have space for their emotions too, and making that a very big deal for like, it's okay to cry. And like, we are in a house where that's safe, and, kind of giving them that space that a lot of boys, I don't think, get all the time.
Yeah, they get told, suck it up.
Right. And
Or do you want me to give you something to cry about?
yeah, right. And
I think that line's universal, though.
Yeah,
that
that
one's
is because
for-
my parents used it on me too.
yes, but men aren't allowed to be sad and women aren't allowed to be angry in our culture. That's very, very common, because if women are angry, am I allowed to say
Bitches.
okay, they're a bitch. I was like, I don't know what this podcast is doing.
It's too late now.
And if men cry, they're pussies,
Yeah.
right?
And I hate
that's it.
that people use that as a negative
Yeah.
connotation, because I heard it 2 weekends ago,
It's weak.
and it's like, why are you being such a... And I was just like, do you know what they can do? I haven't personally experienced it, but I know that they can push a human body out of it and go back. So
I guess
we
it's pretty strong.
So we got to find a different word. then.
ball sack. Because you
But
you
you
tap-
see
Very
what I'm-
sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying, though,
Yeah.
is that's very common.
Yeah.
And so what happens is boys grow up with unprocessed tears and grief, which then turns into anger, more anger. And what do we get? Power and control dynamics, domestic abuse. I mean, it's like fueling that. And then women aren't allowed to be angry. And what do you do when you stuff down anger? Anxiety, depression. I mean, this is like physically, like research has physically, what am I trying to say? Research has proven that this happens to our systems and it affects us in these physical ways.
Sure.
So boys, girls, whatever, my goal as a parent is to create safety and connection. Emotions are positive. We also don't use our emotions to control a space. Like there's boundaries. So I don't know that I would do that differently than if it was girls.
Sure.
But it's definitely something in my mind of like, even at school, that's girl stuff, or I don't want to cry, I look stupid, or whatever, So it comes up still, and all I can do is just create the space at home to hopefully counter it a little bit, to give them the idea that like, even though that's what they say, like maybe it's okay to also be a man and have some tears sometimes. Like that's not a bad thing.
when you're that little too, because your kids are still young.
Yeah.
You are trying to fit into this little group
Yes.
of your
totally.
classroom. And that is totally understandable when they are like,
Yeah.
that's a girl thing. Like,
Right.
I don't want like pink shoes. I can't
Yeah.
wear pink shoes because those are pink is for girls.
Yeah.
And that's what all the other kids are saying too.
Yeah.
If it was the other way around, it wouldn't be weird either. Like all the boys like pink. You
Yeah.
know, it's just whatever the other kids are doing at that time. But then it's like, again, that thing of like, is that what society's telling me or is that what I want?
Right.
And we have a hard time pushing past the societal because everyone sees it.
Sure.
And we want to control how everyone sees us.
Sure. And you want to fit in, right? Community is important. So there is an aspect of like, it's not a bad thing to want to fit into your community. It's just when that affects like you being you, that's where it can be a struggle.
So when you were talking earlier about like using your emotions to control the room, is it like someone doesn't want to do something, so they try to spoil it, like by being like, I don't know how to say this. Like, I know that feeling though. Like I've been
Yeah.
in a room with someone who's not happy and it just brings the whole room down.
Yeah.
How do you
I guess
combat that?
when if one of my kids is really upset about something or really sad or whatever it is, right? They don't want to do the thing, or they're upset. They feel like it was unfair. And it's like, we can have space to be angry, but that doesn't mean that everything is going to change just because you're angry. I'll give an example. This is probably like a dumb example, but I think it'll explain what I'm saying. Like, brother 1 wants the TV, but brother 2 asked for it first. And it feels unfair, right? And they're throwing this fit because it feels so unfair. They had it first yesterday. And it's like, all right, I totally get it. I would feel like it's unfair too. We're going to make space for this emotion. And also, that doesn't mean that we're automatically going to change everything just because you're feeling that emotion.
Sure.
It's like, how do we find that balance?
Yeah.
Where we can validate and give space and not dismiss right away, like, get over it, right? We're still going to give space to it. It's still okay to have it. But that also doesn't mean you're just going to get your way.
Yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't always mean that, because then that isn't good either, because we don't want our emotions to be manipulative tools.
Exactly.
Either.
Yeah.
So it's finding the balance of that.
It's funny because like I feel like that is another covert.
It can become that, right?
Because I've experienced that too,
Yep.
where it's like, I'm not happy with the way things are going, so I'm going to switch the script and either become so, I don't want to say pathetic, but like make myself
Miserable.
so vulnerable that you just have to feel bad for me, and then I get what I want anyway.
Right. I would say one thing that does play in the back of my mind all the time, and I don't know that this would be different if I had girls, but is those ideas of like, because that's there's a bit of a double-edged sword with becoming so trauma informed, is that there's always sort of this tape playing in the back of your mind where my brain just picks up on patterns really quickly and easily. It's just the way it is. So when I see stuff with my kids, I have to constantly remind myself they're children, they're not adults yet. Like, their developmental stage by nature is abusive.
Yes.
Because it's so ego-centered, right?
Yes.
Like, there's going to be things that they do because of their development. That doesn't mean that they're gonna lead down this path, because we're parenting it. We're having boundaries, we're having empathy, we're having the things. But it can be hard to like recognize in the moment, like, oh my gosh, you are so trying to manipulate me and now I'm triggered.
Yes.
Like, I don't think I want to feel this way right now.
I feel like a lot of parents don't realize they're being triggered either when they're in the middle of that. I mean, I've had moments with my niece and nephew where afterwards I'm like, oh my God, that was not you at all. That was all on me. I shouldn't have reacted that way.
Totally.
But it's funny how, like, again, like you go to work and someone says something as simple as, can I talk to you in my office after work? And the whole day you're like, impending doom, impending doom, impending doom.
Right.
And you're
Exactly.
triggering yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, they just want to talk to you. You know exactly how you perform at work.
Right.
And if you're that worried, you're probably not doing too bad.
Right.
But like that one phrase
Yep.
blows up
Yeah.
and sets off all the sensors.
It could be a phrase, a word, a tone of voice. It could be a look. Someone could literally just be like in their mind and just like zoning out and accidentally having like, resting bitch face. And you're like, oh my God, they hate me. Like, you're going in these, right? Like, and I think that's why I was saying before, it's all about slowing down and recognizing that stuff. That's like the first step, is like, why is it that every time that someone has that look on their face, I automatically assume that
It's about
it's me,
you. Yeah.
right? That's just one example of like a pattern you might notice and start pulling the thread on, because is it a trigger? Did it, maybe someone in your childhood used to look at you that way and was critical of you. So your brain has learned to be sensitive or aware of that, right?
Yeah.
That's doesn't make you bad. It doesn't even make you sensitive. It actually makes you really wise.
Sure.
Your nervous system did what it needed to do to get through that thing back then. But now if you are aware of that, like, okay, I have that tendency because of that thing back then, but now I'm aware of it so I can slow down in the moment. Am I being triggered or is this actually danger? And recognize, and it's like those things shift. It's really cool. I might be a little bit of a trauma nerd, but I find it very cool when that kind of stuff happens.
Oh, totally. I'm the same way, especially like now that I've taken the focus off someone else
Yes.
and put it on myself.
Yeah.
And then being able to say, like, you don't have to be that high strung or you don't have to do these things because you don't need to. Like, not everyone has to like you.
Right.
Not everyone has to be your friend or, you know, pending that I didn't really mess up a haircut. Like, if someone doesn't want to go to you for a haircut, it's okay too.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to get mad about it. You don't have to get sad about it. Just like, think about why that would, you know, you want to be the best. If you're not the best, then you're, you know, what is it? If you're not first, you're last kind of mentality.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that, or just like things are not always as personal as I think we think they are.
Yeah.
You know, someone just is going through a busy season, or you talked about haircuts. So like picked the random spot that was open, but it happened to not be you for 3 times. And they're like, and then you're like, oh my God, it's me. And it's like, no, it wasn't. But again, if you slow down and recognize that pattern, you're able to go, like what's causing me to think or feel or behave in this way? And like I said, it's not about labeling that as bad or wrong or good or right. It's neutralize it. It's just a thing. It's a pattern that exists until we figure out why. And I would say 9.9 times out of 10, like most of the time, it goes back to something in childhood that you actually experienced. So you actually had to shift to get through that environment.
Sure.
So it's like, so you actually were wise. Your body did exactly what it was supposed to do. It just got stuck. That's really all it is. That's what trauma is you get stuck in a pattern that was used to survive a certain environment, person, relationship, whatever, that now that you're out of that, you don't necessarily need anymore, but you have to be aware of it before you could stop it or undo it.
To recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel a lot of the people that come to you are already started that journey? Or is it kind of like people who, like, because I don't know if I don't know if this is controversial thinking or not, but like for me, I feel like some people need, like, for example, to go to church because they don't necessarily have the tools to self-reflect, but when they hear a story and then they think about how it relates to them, then they self-reflect. Whereas with you, like if they come to you, like some people are like doing the research, doing the stuff, like basically what you did, and then maybe want an outside source, or is it more people that have absolutely, they just know that they have crappy relationships?
All kinds. I've had people come where they have zero awareness of abuse or trauma, and it's like we're starting from ground zero. And I have people that have done a lot of work, and now they're like really focused on one particular issue that keeps popping up, and they want to try something different. A lot of the people that are in that category usually have complex trauma from childhood, from relationships, from both. And they recognize that talk therapy isn't enough. So they want something different. And that's because talk therapy isn't enough for complex trauma. It can't just be talking in your brain, like processing. It has to be body and mind. So we incorporate both when I coach with people. But so it really depends. And it can be tricky because the people that I work with that kind of come in the middle, or like they already have done some of those building block works, that means that our work is going to go a lot faster. And that's not because of me, it's because of the work they already did. Whereas when I start with someone at ground zero, you know, like I was saying before, how you can't like just tell someone to leave. You also can't just tell someone what's wrong. Like I will see the pattern pretty quickly. I could probably write out a thesis after meeting with someone once or twice of like, this is what's happened. I bet you this is what was in your childhood. I bet you one of your parents is this way. I bet you, like, I can see those patterns. I think it's what makes me good at my job. But in that early part of the relationship, the only thing that I care about and the only thing that should matter is safety and connection. Because before we could even ever explore something, they have to feel safe with me. There has to be actual connection with me for both of us. Like, and I'm not talking about like I make fake connections so that my work works. It's like I'm literally just getting to know the person, trying to connect with them as I would with any other person, a friend, whoever, obviously with professional, boundaries, but to really create that relationship. And I will give like curiosity reflection questions like, hey, you said this the last 3 times. Could it have anything to do with this? To let them sort of decide if that fits their struggle, their narrative. And sometimes they'll say no, and we'll be like, okay, like let's keep exploring. And sometimes that will come up again later where it's like, you know what, maybe it was that thing. Or sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, maybe that is. And it's like a little light goes on. But that's where my job comes in, is I'm not there to tell you the pattern. I'm not there to tell you what to do. I'm not there to tell you if it's right or wrong. I'm just there as sort of a mirror to reflect back. Like, I'm kind of seeing this. Could it have anything to do with this? And then let them ultimately decide if that fits for them or not, because they're the one in their body and having their experiences. But yeah, it can be a little tricky in the beginning sometimes, because you can also accidentally trigger someone if you go too fast.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, if they're not ready to see something or reflect on something, even if it's true, it can be very overwhelming to them, where it's like, oh, I wasn't ready to realize that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very much like a seesaw act with the client, and until we eventually get there.
Do you feel like different ethnicities have, I don't even know how to phrase this question.
Different baggage.
Not necessarily different. Yeah, I guess different baggage. Like working with different types of people, like everyone has a different cultural background. Mm-hmm. So like in some families, they don't talk about anything bad. And that's across the board, I feel like.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what you are. But like sometimes it's baggage with like, this is what people think of us, so we have to be like this. And then that triggers that person into fight or flight because of that. Do you see a lot of that?
Yes and no. I have seen it, because when I was doing my certifications, I had to do a lot of hours of practice coaching with a lot of different people. So I wasn't always working with people that were coming from an abusive relationship background. My coaching business is sort of, like I said, a lot of the people I work with, that is kind of the story at some point in their life, or they are currently going through it. So I work with a lot of people that are kind of explaining very similar patterns and similar stories, just because I think that's become my wheelhouse or my expertise. Mm-hmm. But even with that, every person has a culture that they've grown up in, a family culture, ethnicity culture, a societal culture, right? Like every person has those pieces of who they are or what's shaped them. And I will say, like, some people that grow up in certain areas or with certain types of families, like, do have some of the same hangups, because some of that culture is really deep, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll just give an example. White culture is oftentimes very disconnected from emotions. It's very logical thinking and very much in your head. And so I see that pop up a lot. But there's definitely some patterns that exist throughout different cultures, because if you're raised in the same ways, it keeps getting passed on generationally. Mm-hmm. But I usually, when it comes to like a person, I don't even really go there. Like when I meet them, it's more like, this is the individual and I'm going to get to know them and their story. Yeah. And whatever is included with that, including whatever their culture is, family culture, societal culture, any other culture is going to be a part of that story and a part of like what we're finding when we pull those threads.
And when you said physically, what did you mean? Like when you're helping someone, you're working with them, like talk therapy, but then what was the physical part?
Yeah. So the training that I've done has been specific to complex trauma. So a lot of people understand what PTSD is. That especially became very aware to the population because of war veterans. But there's this thing called complex PTSD. So PTSD, this is like the shortest explanation I can give. PTSD is like you could kind of pinpoint the trauma to one incident. So like they were in war or they were in an accident or they had like a child pass away or something. Like there's an incident that affected me and it's changed me afterwards. And that's what I'm working on is that trauma. Complex PTSD is like you can't point to one thing. So this is very common in like abusive relationships or abusive childhoods or childhoods that included like a lot of war, or like if you grew up in a country that experienced a lot of war or famine or a lot of natural disasters or something like that. You can't necessarily pinpoint it to one incident. And sometimes, especially with like covert hidden abuse or like emotional neglect, these things that they aren't as easy to identify, it's even harder. And so you've experienced moment after moment after moment after moment that has affected your nervous system. So with that type of trauma, you cannot think your way out of it because a lot of it is in your body. And so we do talk about things that's called top-down processing. So you're thinking and you're experiencing your thoughts and your beliefs, but then we also want to check in with our actual body. So that's bottom-up processing. So to give an example, if I'm talking with a person and they're saying they had a really rough week and they were feeling really anxious at work when their boss came in and gave them this deadline, that might be a thing that I'm like, well, tell me more about that. Like, what were you worried about, right? This is top down. What were you worried about? What were you thinking? I might even say what you were feeling, but again, that's usually like how I express my feelings versus sensations. And if the person is in a place that they seem like feeling regulated enough to do the body part, I might also be like, when you feel that anxiety, where do you feel it? Like in your body. So then we shift from angry, happy, anxious to I feel tension, warmth, emptiness, fluttering, tightness, numbness, like sensations in our body. And we might point to spots. And a lot of times in the very beginning, they don't even know. They don't have the language for it, and they literally can't, like they've never even taken the time to connect to the body part. But over time, as they start to put those pieces together of like, oh, I felt anxious, what I am processing as anxious, and that felt like tension in my chest. Usually as we move forward is there will be moments where they're like, you know what, in this situation, I didn't think I was anxious, but I felt that tension in my chest. And it's like, okay, you're starting to gain more pieces of your experience that weren't always in your mind because a lot of it is in the body. They say that there's a nerve that goes from our brain all the way down to our gut called the vagus nerve. It's one of the biggest nerves in our body. It touches like every major organ. The messages that get sent from the brain down to the organs and from the organs to the brain, if you were to like tally them up, 80% of them are from our body to the brain. Only 20% of them are from our brain to the body. So the body piece of that is so important because a lot of times trauma triggers, these things that get us stuck, they're not in our head. They're actually like sensations and things that we're feeling that we may not even be aware of at first. So that's what I was talking about.
Unexplained panic attacks where you're like hyperventilating.
Yeah, or even smaller. Like it might be like some people carry around actual tension in their body that it is so normal
That they don't feel it.
They don't even feel it as tension.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the kind of stuff that eventually you get to where you're like, I don't even need to process all up here. Now I'm like, I know what that gut feeling literally feels like when something's off. And even if I can't explain it in my mind, if I feel that, I've learned that my body knows a lot more than I probably think, and I can trust that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting out of here. Whereas before, I might have not even noticed it, or I might have thought, oh, I'm just anxious today or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the processing I'm doing up here, but I'm not connecting both.
Yeah.
So it's about connecting both. Whereas with talk therapy, you often get a lot of this and trying to rewire this without ever getting to this.
That's cool. It's like a nice, well-rounded approach to it. Involving body and mind.
I love it.
How can people find you, get a hold of you?
Sure. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Coaching with Kensie, pretty easy to remember, or TikTok, Coaching with Kensie 1, because my old one got erased when TikTok went down.
Oh, no.
So I had to start over, but
We had to do that too. Little Lion Cuts 1.
yeah, I was like, whatever, here we go. So that'd probably be the easiest way to find me is
Nice.
there. And my website is posted on both of those, or all of those.
Spell Kensie.
Kensie.
Because I would have spelled it with a Z.
Yeah.
Which I have spelled it with a Z.
Yep, Coaching with
good to know.
Kensie with an S.
With an S. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's how you find me.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
thanks for
swinging
having me.
by.
Thank you for coming on.
Bye.
Of course.
Let's go.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Y'all Be Good. And as always, a reminder that we are a project of Little Lion Cuts. We hope you've enjoyed these stories just as much as we have enjoyed sharing them. Every family has a story, and we're just grateful that we get to hear yours too. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you think someone else might need to hear it, don't forget to share this podcast with them. And hey, while you're at it, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. That really does go a long way. You definitely don't want to miss out on any of the real, raw, and inspiring conversations we've got lined up. And we'd love to hear your stories too. So go ahead and find us on Instagram at y'allbegoodpod or drop us a message with your thoughts. And until next time, y'all be good.